Okay, so this is just a little intro to absolute value functions. You have that Desmos activity to help you explore as well, but we're gonna do a little bit of notation here and discovery together. So remember that the absolute value of a number, x, written absolute value of x with the bars, is the distance the number is from 0. So distance the number is from 0 on the number line. So that's why it always has to be positive or 0, because -4 and 4 are both 4 units away. A distance has to be positive. So this is how the absolute value function can be written as a piecewise function. So if we think about a piecewise function, it's going to have a slope of -1 when x's are less than 0. So you could do a graph here. You could do a XY chart. So if it was 0 and then less than 0, so -1, -2, we plug in 0, we get 0, -1, we get 1, -2, we get 2. So it just makes each of those numbers positive. And we're going to see that they're going to meet up. So it doesn't really matter that this is an open circle, but I'll make that open. And then the other one is 0, 1, 2, and I plug it in and I'm just going to get 0, 1, 2. And this one was closed. So when I graph this, my graph is going to look like this. And this left side is the graph of y equals -x. The right side is the graph of y equals x. So notice that all of our y values are non-negative with this absolute value of x. What we can do is move this around and stretch and shrink and reflect. We can do a bunch of different things with this absolute value function to make it look slightly different, but it's always going to have that V shape. Okay. The graph is going to consist of two rays that meet at a vertex. So this point right here is called the vertex. Another thing we're going to introduce is interval notation. So in interval notation, you are going to use parentheses and brackets. So for the, so we're going to use interval notation. I'm going to write this down. And if we have an open circle or a closed circle, those are going to be different. So open is going to have an open parenthesis. Closed is going to have a closed bracket. Okay, so those are your different things. And then the other symbol you're going to see is this infinity. That means if it goes on forever in one direction or the other. And whenever I use an infinity, it always has to have a parenthesis next to it because it's not an actual number. It's a concept, so you're going to get closer and closer to it, but you're never going to actually reach it. So the domain of this function are all of the x values. So if I go across the x-axis from left to right, I'm going to hit all of those x values because these arrows mean that it's going on forever. So my domain is going to be going from -infinity, that's over here, -infinity, to +infinity. Okay, and because we're using infinities, I have to use open parentheses. And then the range is starting at the bottom of the graph. So we're starting at the very first y value we get, which is right here, and then moving up. So since those are arrows going up, it's going to go on forever in that direction. I do get to include 0. So since I'm including 0, I'm going to have a bracket, 0, and then up to infinity. So it always goes least to greatest in this interval notation. And you always have a parenthesis next to a infinity sign, and if you're including the number, we put a bracket.